So, hello everyone. What we're doing is having a quick conversation post hard ready about some interesting, not anecdotes, stories, I guess, that were told, some analogies that were made, some new inside joke shirt material that has come about. And so I have questions. And
That's
well,
weird.
I'm
I'm shocked.
I never ask any questions.
Nope.
I really just have one question.
Okay.
Talk to me more about Dobermans. That wasn't even a question.
That's not a question.
Will you please talk to me more about Dobermans?
Okay, story time. So, the late 1800s, there was a man named Louis Doberman.
Spoiler alerts.
He was, well, you already ruined it, so, it was
Sorry,
kind of,
everyone.
you led with the punchline, so.
That's how I do it.
So he was a tax collector in Germany, and at the time, he had to go door to door to collect taxes.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
For him and for the taxpayer.
Yeah, you can imagine that was not the safest of jobs.
Mm-mm.
And so he wanted a dog to take with him.
As we all do.
Yeah, but he wanted a real dog.
He needed it to do a certain purpose. I'll take any dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more like me. He wanted a dog that also had some functionality. So, obviously, there were many, many breeds of dogs. None of them kind of fit exactly what he wanted. So, he did his research, chose 4 primary breeds. He chose the Beauceron, which is a French breed. So, working dog, does a little bit of pulling, herding, livestock, guardian kind of stuff. The Weimaraner, which is, a German breed, and it's a sporting hunting dog.
Are they a little high-strung?
All hunting dogs are.
Well, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All sporting breeds are.
Okay.
He had the German Pinscher, which I actually don't really know a whole lot about that breed. I don't think it's a super popular, well-known breed. And then the Rottie, the Rottweiler, which obviously has, guardian kind of pedigree background. And he liked different elements of all these breeds, different traits of all these breeds. You've got, prey drive, you've got protective, you've got scent and sight, and but none of them quite were exactly what he wanted. Mm-hmm. He wanted something a little sleeker than the Doberman. I mean, than the Rottweiler. A little more agile, a little faster. But high prey drive, intelligent, easy to train, that kind of stuff. And so he did a lot of breeding to get to what became the Doberman. And I kind of brought this up in my session of Hard Ready because we were talking about jiu-jitsu and how jiu-jitsu has its place in self-defense, but it's not actually self-defense. It's like heavy bag work is a part of boxing, but it's not boxing. And so I used the Doberman as a way to kind of talk about kind of a duality here where I wanted to...
A duality?
Yeah, weird. Where I wanted to show how just because we have all these different breeds or all these different martial arts doesn't mean that we can't take certain martial arts or take certain dog breeds and come up with something better or more evolved or maybe fits me better or fits a certain populace better. And so the idea that, if we were going to build a self-defense system, a self-defense program, you would need to get outside of what you already do and what you already know if you wanted it to evolve. Gasp, you would have to hybridize it. You would have to...
Don't use that dirty word.
You would have to get outside of your lineage and bring in other influences in order to evolve and improve. Now, the dangerous part of this is...
I'm going to ask you about the risks.
When you come up with what you think is the perfect breed, perfect system, then you stop evolving, you stop bringing in other influences. You stop, and even worse than that, you inbreed, you line breed.
Yeah, so I was going to ask this. So if the Doberman is maybe self-defense as we know it right now,
Yeah.
and it's been created and developed using all of these different things.
Yeah.
And then our goal is we don't want to just stop right here and be like, okay, Doberman's only from here on out kind of thing. We're still going to look for other things and pieces that we like best. And I imagine sometimes you're going to weave those things in or breed to keep the analogy alive. And you're going to look at what you got and be like, oh, that can end right there.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And then you try something else until you continue to improve and evolve it.
Yes. The problem with, if we step outside of the analogy for a minute and look more directly at self-defense systems, the problem with the line breeding, the inbreeding, the lineage, the pedigree, and claiming that that's the most important thing is, at some point you stop evolving, you stop bringing in those outside influences, and the world kind of passes you by. Human nature is what it is. But there have been a lot of developments in the past 20 years alone, just in how the world consumes martial arts. If you look at the proliferation of MMA as an example, I testified in a probable cause hearing for an attempted murder case, last year sometime, where a 15-year-old was involved. And there was video footage of him attempting a rear naked choke. And he was bow tying the arms. He'd never had any training whatsoever. He was mimicking things that he had seen before. Because there's a lot more information out there. There's a lot more information readily available. And people are consuming it at a much greater rate than ever before. And so what that has caused is, where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you get away with saying, well, we're training for the untrained person. I don't think that's nearly as a valid a stance anymore.
You don't have to go seek out anything. I mean, if you have a phone in your pocket, you have any information that you want.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go find a studio, start training, and get this knowledge.
No, I mean, obviously, if you want to be good at something, you need to do that.
Of course.
But you can mimic things, and if you've got some athletic attributes or whatever, it's relatively easy to do.
Some people are really good at mimicking what they see. That's how we learn as children, developing, right?
Sure.
So it makes me think of, and I'm picking this specifically, one, to get you all riled up, and then two, to hit home an important point. If we just say something like situational awareness,
right?
Okay, well, one, that doesn't tell me anything. That's not a way to do something. That's just a vague umbrella term, and you still have to understand what that means.
It's like saying mindset.
Yeah, that doesn't. Or just change your mindset.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more on that. But what we would have said was situational awareness 30 years ago is not what situational awareness is now.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about people texting on their phones while they were crossing the street 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so in that nature, in that sense, self-defense has to evolve as we evolve and the threats change, and what we know as threats and problems and things to be aware of and pay attention to changes. We have to change with that.
Right. And I get it. I get that. Years ago, I put out a video saying F your lineage, and I think a lot of people just totally misunderstood what I was saying.
Yeah.
But regardless, I still hold very steadfast to the idea that lineage, pedigree, whatever, it only matters to you as the individual, right? It has no real substance beyond that. I think people that have put in a lot of time and energy and effort into a thing, they should be proud of it. They should be proud of who they've worked with, who they're trained with, whatever.
Yeah.
But those people aren't going to fight for them.
Right.
When you walk through the parking lot, when we leave here today, and there's a homeless person out there that is a little bit more aggressive than probably they should be, nobody else is going to show up and fight that battle for you. And if you were still training the same way that you were taught in Kempo, I'd argue you weren't prepared to deal with that.
No.
And it would just be like, I made this reference during Hard Ready, it's like, well, if we never decided to breed canines in a certain way, we would just all have wolves in our houses and
Hell
you
yeah.
know, you would, I mean,
yeah.
Kids are replaceable, you know, like we would just,
that's my mantra.
we would just make more kids as the wolves ate them, you know? And so pedigree, lineage, whatever, it's a personal thing. I think it has importance to the individual, and that pretty much stops there.
Yeah.
If you want to evolve, if you want to get better, you need outside influences. You need to bring in the Weimaraner, the Rottweiler, the Beauceron, the German Pinscher, whatever. And look, there's going to be different levels of those required, right? It wasn't just a one-to-one, we're going to breed these two together, we're going to breed these two together, and then we're going to take that offspring and breed those and done. No, we wanted a little bit more of the Rottweiler than we wanted the German Pinscher or whatever it is. And that kind of mindset and mentality is important for growth. We have to recognize, okay, what I have right now is not exactly what I need. And then again, the flip side of that is if we take the Doberman and we assume that the Doberman is perfect and this certain line of Doberman is perfect, and I'm never going to get outside of this line of Doberman, now we're going to start to get genetic problems. We're going to have hip dysplasia. We're going to have heart murmurs. We're going to have epilepsy. We're going to have these things because, again, no outside influences. The breed, the pedigree starts to break down.
Yeah.
Because it's truly inbreeding.
It needs change.
Yes.
It wants change. That's how it thrives.
Right. And that's how
and when
martial
you don't
arts
give it to it,
thrive.
And life and everything.
Yes. And when that doesn't happen, it starts to break down. And then you start to say, well, pedigree is what matters most. Lineage is what matters most. Well, look at all the championships I have with this Doberman. Okay, that's fine. But 3 or 4 generations later, your puppies have hip dysplasia and they're blind and they have heart murmurs and they have epilepsy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
not a championship dog anymore.
Right.
Because you stunted it.
Right.
You stopped its growth.
You're still marketing from 3 generations prior.
Yeah.
You know, and that'll get you so far. You'll be able to fool a lot of people with that. But now, like we alluded to earlier, in the information age, you are ignorant by choice. And people do their research now. People pay attention to what's being said. People pay attention to what's out there. The information is all over the place. It's omnipresent, you know. And so it's a lot harder to get away with that bullshit now.
Yeah.
And so I found the analogy. It came to me in the middle of the night one night. You know, I don't sleep. And it resonated with me. I hope that it was going to resonate with the people in the seminar. I feel like it did. Yeah. I got some pretty good feedback on it. And ultimately, you know, we came back around to, because I was teaching a self-defense portion on the ground where we were mostly doing jiu-jitsu, where, you know, most of my grappling tends to be wrestling based. We were mostly doing jiu-jitsu. And again, I kind of brought it all back around to say, look, jiu-jitsu is a piece of it. Jiu-jitsu is part of self-defense, but it's not self-defense. It's the Weimaraner of the Doberman, you know? So yeah, that was kind of my late night, light bulb epiphany kind of moment. And, you know, I wanted to share it with the group, and I think it resonated. You know, I'm no Eli with my analogies and stories and whatever.
Do you keep a journal by your bed? Can we publish it?
That would be terrifying.
So you mentioned the Doberman wouldn't have been created if Mr. Doberman wasn't willing to think.
Herr Doberman.
Who?
Herr. Herr.
Oh, okay.
That's the Mr.
Oh, okay.
His name's Louis.
Yep. Herr Louis Doberman. Anyway, if he hadn't looked at what was available, if he had just looked at what was available to him and said, you're the closest you'll do, and went on his way, the Doberman would have never been created. But he looked at what was available, maybe even pressure tested, tried out different things, started realizing what combinations he needed, what traits he needed, chose to evolve and make this new system.
Right.
And I would venture to say, you know, not to be too self-aggrandizing, Fit to Fight is at their Doberman stage and continues to find and evolve. And I don't know what we're going to call the next Doberman, but we literally have continued to change what we call what we do because we've changed what we do.
Yeah.
And we've landed here at modern Krav Maga as
Yeah.
our Doberman, our gold standard for the moment, for just this moment in time. But a lot of organizations are still working with their Rottweiler. It was the best thing they had.
Right.
And why throw in these Weimaraner traits? Nah, this Rottweiler is fine.
People are scared to death of change, terrified. You know, my training centers have had 4 or 5 different names.
Yeah,
I don't care. Like,
we literally just changed our curriculum.
Well, look, it's the whole thing about like, you know, we say this in our classes, the second plan A kind of idea. When I first started, Krav Maga Defense Academy was what made the most sense to me. That's all I was teaching. That's what made the most sense. I was just teaching Krav Maga. And as my centers developed, people came to me and they wanted a kids program. They wanted some grappling. I still had kind of an association with Bobby, so people wanted stick stuff. So we were looking at, you know, I was doing Kempo for the kids and Krav Maga for the adults and Balintawak for the adults and Jiu-Jitsu. And so, you know, we had Israel and
Philippines
and Japan and Brazil. And so I moved it to international martial arts training, you know, and it wasn't that one was necessarily better than the other one. It was just, hey, the circumstances have changed. The context is different.
This is what I need.
This is what I need now, you know, and I've done that several times since then because I'm not even remotely afraid of change. It doesn't, the idea of not changing, not evolving, being passed by, that's scary.
Yeah. That's a special type of mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
It probably a lot of people don't, I'm going to use the word need here, don't need it. They're going to skate by. They're going to be fine. They'll do their thing that they've always done. It's
100%.
It's Tommy's landscaping business and landscaping, whatever. And they're good to go.
Right.
And
that's fine.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's
good. That's the beauty of it all. You know, I guess my biggest problem comes in when it's one thing if I am teaching, I don't know, I'm teaching a martial art that is wholly demo kind of based. We know it's a traditional martial art. I'm not calling it self-defense. I'm calling it Shorinji, Kempo, Karate. You know, it's about personal development and discipline and getting in good shape and these kinds of things. But when you call something self-defense and you say it's the best self-defense and you're the biggest kind of marketing shtick that you rely on is 30, 40, 50, 60 years past, that's a problem for me, you know? And again, if people choose that, knowing, because again, ignorance is a choice at this point.
Yes.
I can literally look up anything that I want right now on that phone, and I'm going to get so much information that's going to be hard to discern which one to click on. And so if people still choose these other avenues, that's fine. You know, I'm all for freedom. I want people to be able to make their choices. As long as it doesn't infringe on me, no worries, no problem. As long as they're being honest with themselves. Because I can promise you these other people are not being honest with them.
Yeah. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse for breaking it. Kind of thing. Yeah. You are responsible for doing your own research.
Yes.
And that's, you know, maybe not emphasized in school enough while you're learning to do all these things, understanding exactly why you're doing it.
Right.
It's not just to give you busy work. It's so that you start getting a thought pattern in your head. So you don't just see something that pops up and it's so-and-so's Taekwondo and all you see on their feeds are people in uniforms punching the air and that's all they do. And now they're offering all of a sudden this 6-week self-defense program.
And you go to their bio page, their About Us page, and there's like 18,000 certifications. Look beyond that.
Right.
What do those certifications really mean?
What do they require? What do they entail?
Is it something they did online?
Yeah.
You know, and not that online is wholly bad. As a kind of a way to bolster something that you already know and already good at.
See the way other people are doing it and get diversified information and sources.
Right. But I'm already, for lack of a better term, I should already be a subject matter expert in this field.
Rather than going to learn it online.
Yes. This is continuing education.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not, I'm going to learn. It's like trying to learn how to drive a stick shift online, and you literally just have to go out and, okay, now I have to go out and do it.
Yeah.
I have to be able to get from point A to point B right now based on the videos I just watched on YouTube.
Without dying. My life is at stake.
Or killing someone.
Yeah.
And so online certainly has its place. And I think it can be a great addendum if you already have a good depth of knowledge, or it can be a great kind of jumping off point if you're looking for something. But it's not a holistic kind of an approach.
Yeah, I agree. We went down a whole list of topics. We're actually into something that is going to come up on our podcast within season 1. I know I've seen it in there about choosing where you train and how to think about what the information that's presented to you, whether it's online or taking your first class and that sort of thing. And so I know we'll get more in depth on that at some point.
Well, if you're looking for a Doberman, don't settle for a Weimaraner.
That's a good place to start.
Because, I mean, truly, like, if you see a Doberman that has uncropped ears, it looks a whole lot like a Weimaraner. If you saw a fawn or a blue Dobe with uncropped ears, you could mistake it for a Weimaraner if you didn't know the difference.
Right.
And I do think that the self-defense world can be that way. If you don't know. If you've never seen a Weimaraner and you've never seen a Doberman, or you've never seen one or the other.
Yeah. And then somebody puts this thing in front of you and says, this is what this is.
This is a Weimaraner.
Yeah.
Or this is a Doberman. You're like, yeah, probably.
Okay. Looks,
looks like pictures I've seen of, And especially with social media now, you can make anything look awesome.
The AI.
I hesitate to share things now because I don't know what's real.
Every time I look at something, I'm like, is it AI? Could it be AI? I don't know how to.
I shared a photo the other day of a Belgian Malinois standing next to a deer.
Yeah.
And it was a reputable source sharing it. And I'm looking at this thinking, I don't think this is real. And it 100% could be. But I'm to the point now where I question everything I see. I'm like, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
a good jumping off point.
Yep.
All right.
Weimaraner
of the Doberman. .com. I'm sure we'll have it trademarked.
Yeah, nobody will ever be able to get that get that domain.
That's true. Okay. All right. Well, that concludes our discussion on everything under the sun, starting from the creation of Dobermans, ending with AI taking over.
If you want a Doberman, don't settle for a Weimaraner.
There you go. That cookie will crumble. Bye, everyone.
Cut.
We out.